Hello, this is Mr. Martin. I'm going to walk you through today our very first assignment in Scratch, which should be a fairly easy one, where you're just going to create a program where you're going to move a sprite around the screen. Then you're going to tell us 5 things about yourself. Now, first thing you need to do is get to the Scratch website, which can be found right here by typing in scratch.mit.edu into the web browser, or I've also linked it on the Schoology class page with our assignment. Once you're here, you have to log in with your login credentials we created last week. Hopefully you wrote those down or you remember them. And once you've logged in, you'll see towards the top a button that says Create. You're going to click it, and it's going to load up a project. Now, for those of you that haven't used Scratch before, this is what your design page looks like. Towards the top, you're going to see your assignment has a name, your project. You're going to go ahead and we'll click that and delete it out. And you're going to give it a new name. I want that name to be your first name, or your first name, last name, or first name, last initial. You can put a space, and you're going to write 5 things. That way we know it's the 5 things about you assignment. Now, if you haven't used Scratch, here's kind of some of the stuff on the design page. On the left, you have the different categories of code that you can access. Starting with motion blocks. Motion blocks will, like it sounds, move your sprites, your characters, like we see here with our buddy Scratch. We have different looks, where you can make them say things, think things, change costumes. Some of these we'll do later on this year. You also have sounds that you can do. You also have events, which are very important. These are the things that are going to kick off your code or start your code, either by clicking the flag or by pressing a button on the keyboard or by clicking on things, sprites that you have in your program. You also have control blocks, which are very important. Helps control your code, give you repeats, or have you do what are called conditionals, which we'll learn about this year. Also sense, so your sprites can tell if they're touching another sprite or touching the side of the screen. Then operators, variables, those are things we'll use much later on this year. We're going to end up starting with motion blocks. Most of our stuff today is going to be motion, and it's going to be looks and events, 3 categories. Over here in the middle, this is where you are actually going to do your coding. It's where you're going to drag in your blocks, connect them together. By putting a bunch of directions or commands together, we can tell our character to do something. So by moving and turning, I'm telling Sprite to move and turn, following this series of code. Just move 10, move 10, move 10, and turn. The characters, the sprites, only do whatever you tell it to do. So if you want it to do something, you have to be very specific in what you want it to say. I'm going to go ahead, since I don't want these actually, I'm going to move them, drag them into this space over here, and just let go. That's how they delete. So this screen over here where I have Scratch moving around, that is actually the output screen. So this is going to be where you see what happens when you run your code. Down here we have our sprites. So we can put in a ton of sprites, but today we're only going to do 1. And I actually don't want it to be Scratch. So we're going to start you off by having you select a different sprite. So to do that, we're going to go down here where it says Sprite 1. We're going to click the recycle bin. We're going to get rid of them. Down here, you have a little cat face with a plus sign. We're going to click on it. We're going to select the magnifying glass. We can choose a different sprite. And there's a lot of different options for a bunch of different reasons. Later on this year, we'll make our own sprites and bring them in. But for today, we're just going to do this. And I'm going to choose this kind of cool looking retro robot. Looks pretty awesome. But right now, that robot's pretty big. He's taking up most of the screen. We're going to shrink him down. This is where you can do some editing of your sprite a little bit or get some information about it. We're going to change the size. We're going to double click and I'm going to shrink him down to about 50%, just so he has some room to move. For this assignment, what you're going to need to do, you're going to start your sprite in the middle, and then you're going to move him to the 4 corners. And each time he goes to a new corner, he's going to say something about you. So you're going to tell us 5 things about you. So 1 in each corner, and then 1 he gets back to the middle. So to do that, here's how we're going to put some of the code together. We're going to start with our event block. So again, everything has to kick off with some sort of event. It can be pressing a button or when we click on the robot. To keep it simple today, I'm going to do just when the green flag is clicked. What I want to do is make sure that the robot here starts in the middle. So the middle, and we can tell it exactly what position. So we're going to grab this go to XY block. And the screen over here is broken down into a grid, almost like graph paper in math. Where you can imagine this has been cut in half. There's a x-axis cutting through that is almost a straight line. Sorry about that. No y-axis cutting through here. It's been broken up into little grids along the x, along the y, just like graphing in math. To get the robot in the middle, we need it to be at 0x and 0y, which is exactly in the center of the screen. So we can just go into this box, 0, 0. So now when the flag is clicked, the robot starts exactly in the middle. So now we have to get the robot to move, and there's a number of different ways you can get the robot to move where you want. You can tell it to simply move a certain number of steps. So we could say 10, which is not very far. Or we'd have to do that a bunch of times. You could change that number and have him move maybe 50 times, 100 times. Actually get all the way over, the robot would have to move about 200 steps. So one way is you could go in and figure out all the different number of steps he would have to take to get to the different spots. That might take a lot of time. Another thing you can do, instead of using steps, you can drag the robot where you want him to go, like this. Then you can look at what his coordinate is. Right now it's 191, 131. I could bring this in and tell him to go there. That, when he goes to it, he goes way too fast. I'm actually going to have him glide to that spot. We're going to have him take a second to do so. So what that's going to do, I'm going to click the flag, he'll go to the middle, and then he'll glide. And in 1 second, he'll go to that corner. And now, I want the robot to say something. So under my looks, I'm going to have him say. And you can type exactly what you want him to say. I'm going to say something about me. I have taught at VMSS for 18 years. Yes, it's a long time. So now, click the flag. Again, it just goes down the line. It's going to go to 0, 0. It will then glide to the corner where we told it to go. And then it's going to say something. Yeah, that is correct, Mr. Robot. Now I want the robot to move to a different corner. I'm going to choose this one. Same thing, I could just have him move, and I could tell him under my motion blocks to use the steps and then point, or I can just move the robot. Number figured out. I'm going to glide again, this time to 191 negative 126. And I'm going to go back to my looks. He's going to say something else. He's going to say this time, I have taught coding for 6 years. So now when I click the flag again, it's going to go to the middle. It's going to glide to the top right and say something. It'll glide to the bottom right and say something. And that is what we have so far. So let's give it a try. We'll click the green flag. There he is. There he is. Now you have to, this is where you're going to have to figure it out a bit on your own. Figure out how to get him to this corner and say something about you. This corner, say something about you. And end back to the middle and say one more thing about you. If you have done coding before, you have played with Scratch, and this seems simple, then by all means, add some embellishments. Make it look awesome, change the characters, put some backgrounds, add title screens. If you're new to using Scratch and new to coding, this is a good spot for you to start. The most important part of this, though, is once you are done, you have to share it. So you're going to click when you're done, and this is very important. Otherwise, we don't get to see your work. This is how you turn it in. You're going to click Share. And it will say, congrats, you're shared a project. And then scroll towards the bottom, you'll see a button that says Add to Studio. And you're going to click on it and add it to the studio in our class page that says 5 things about me. Good luck. Let me know, or Mr. Podmers know, if you have any questions. And as always, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye.